Let me start with you, Rich, if I can, please.
Well, thank you, Ralph. First of all, let me add my voice to those who've expressed appreciation and gratitude for the activities of the MSDF, particularly in the Indian Ocean. That mission has come to a close, but I think we ought to acknowledge that many of our Japanese colleagues did some dirty, hard, and dangerous work for which the international community, not the United States so much, we have oilers, we can take care of ourselves, for which the international community has expressed gratitude, and I want to express that appreciation as well. So I look around the room and see Al Seligman and Tom Hubbard and Evans, and Torkel, Jim Auer, Jim Kelly, and others, fellows whom I've worked together with for 30 years on U.S.-Japan relations. I'm reminded of a story. Seems a lady came into her doctor, and after an examination, the doctor said to her, "Madam, I have some bad news. You've got a week to live." She said, "Oh, my God. Have you got any recommendations? Is there anything I can do?" And he said, "Well, the only thing I can suggest is you marry a specialist on U.S.-Japan security." She said, "Oh, will that help me live longer?" He said, "No, but a week will seem like forever." So, look, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we've been as well. Look, all of us in this room, I believe, almost without exception, are somewhat guilty for the situation we now find ourselves in. All of us, I think, weren't realizing that the Minshu Party and most of us in this room actually speak a different language. When we talk about deterrence, I think everyone in this room knows what deterrence is, but I'm not sure that, and it's not a fault, but it's just a fact that the DJP didn't understand this, have the same concept of deterrence. We didn't pick up on this. We didn't catch it. We didn't get it. We all read the manifesto before the election. We understood what was in it. I think all of us, at least on the American side, were shocked to find that a political party might actually do what they said in their platform. I mean, it would be such a surprise here if our politicians did that. We also, all of us, I think, have obviously become too complacent. We didn't spread our network broadly enough to make sure that everyone, Americans and Japanese, understood, may not have agreed with it, but at least understood the same language, and that what we meant when we talked in terms of security and deterrence and extended deterrence and nuclear deterrent, et cetera. This language, I think, evidenced a difference in language and difference in thought process evidenced itself most clearly when we heard the talk from the new government about the desire for equality, which is fantastic. I think every American said, that's wonderful. We will no longer have a Japan that's, in terms of their defense spending to GDP, will be in number 143 in the world. Maybe they'll pick up the pace a little bit, but of course what was meant by the DJP is they wanted more quality in the decision-making. I would have thought that a 10-year discussion to find a replacement facility for Futenma would have indicated that Japan was hardly a puppy dog in the relation. These were 10 arduous years of negotiations, but be it as it may, we are where we are. And I think the Bush administration, of which I was a part, many of us here were a part, has to take some of the blame, particularly for the latter 2 years, because particularly on the question of Korea, we really didn't do a very good job. We didn't share with our Japanese friends as we should, and we had up to that point. We were drifting away from a policy of denuclearization to actually one of counterproliferation without ever announcing it. And I think this allowed the beginnings of some questions to creep in, even among our very close friends on the Japanese side, and that's our bad, as we say here. Now, where are we today? Well, the Japanese public has spoken, and as Kurt indicated today, we, of course, respect that decision. The irony here is the United States, for years and years, has had a desire for a real, genuine two-party democracy. We got it. And so we're going to live with it, as Kurt said at lunch, and we're going to deal with it. We're going to work with it, and we respect it. But it is a fact that our alliance has been adrift for at least 4 months, probably will be adrift in some fashion or another until a decision is reached on Futenma replacement, Henoko or something else, and may actually go in or pass the decision, may actually go past the upper house election. I personally am a little skeptical that we'll get a May decision. It might have to wait till July in the upper house election. So clearly, temporarily, the alliance is in second place behind politics in Japan. That is, I think that's a fact. It's not I'm not being prejudicial. I'm just pointing out a fact. And you got to put this in a little context. Is the Henoko or Futenma replacement facility, is this the big deal that many are trying to make it? Well, it's perhaps a bigger deal when you put it into the following context. For the United States, a decision to delay Futenma is obviously a sovereign right of the government of Japan, no question about it. But the backdrop had to do with the Prime Minister going to China and talking about an East Asian community, which may or may not have included the United States at the time. There were some questions about whether it did or did not. I think there was a small bit of misunderstanding, not a large one, but a small bit of misunderstanding between the Prime Minister and our President at the meeting, otherwise good meeting in Tokyo. There's the specter of the Japanese Liberation Army descending on Beijing recently. And the same gentlemen who led that descent on Beijing have not been to Washington for 10 years. So there's a backdrop to this that makes questions come up in people's mind. And finally, none of us have a true understanding, and we're trying to gain it, of the real hearts of the leaders of the Minchu Party. We know some of them. We don't know enough about enough of them. So this is the backdrop that makes Futenma an even larger issue than it might be otherwise. And it's quite clear, and I think others have said it, we can't, the United States, the Americans in this room, can't want this relationship more than our Japanese friends do. We can't. That's just a fact. Now, where should we go? Well, we probably ought to take a real deep breath and relax a little bit. We're going to have an alliance after whatever decision is made on Futenma. I'm personally pessimistic that it will be a positive decision about moving to Henoko, and I don't think difficult decisions get better by waiting. At least that's what my parents always taught me. But that's my personal view. I may be proven wrong. But I think that's where we are. Therefore, for the Americans in the room working closely with our Japanese colleagues, we better have a plan B, and that's going to be very heavily influenced by military needs so we can protect and project our alliance responsibilities. Second, I think that there will be a bit of a need to regain a little bit of trust. I'm not suggesting at all that there's been a tear or a rip or a rent in this trust, but there are some questions that have entered into many minds on the importance, on how important the alliance is viewed in Japan. So we can work on that a bit. But we really need to work on reassuring the region. There are no country, as far as I'm aware, with the possible exception of China, who hasn't come into the Gaima show with some suggestions that we really need to repair this relationship with the United States and get on with business, because it's a great deal of nervousness, notwithstanding whatever decision comes out of our friends in Tokyo on Futenma replacement. We need to make sure we together, I think, are working in the region to reassure them. Now, how do we do this? Well, I would suggest a number of ways, and I'm not the fount of wisdom on this by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems to me that maybe the U.S. and Japan working together on peacekeeping, training, etc., so we're better able to be peacekeepers if our governments decide, might be a good signal to the region and has benefits to both of us. I would think that something like a joint MSDF, U.S. Navy medical civic action program, dental civic action program in some of the island nations and some of the islands of Indonesia, et cetera, is something that would be widely respected by those countries, widely needed by many of the countries, and I think something that would, again, reassure our friends and have some practical humanitarian benefits. It seems to me that anti-piracy, more activities by Japan in Djibouti and Somalia might be a very good way to sort of get back in the game a little bit if the government in Tokyo would want to do that. And maybe finally, something that I think is personally very special to Mr. Hatayama, and that is the developing relationship with India that Japan has. He has a personal affection. He's visited India many, many times. We're so proud in the United States of our having developed a good relationship with India. Japan is working hard. Abe Sensei took a large group of businessmen there. Indians are all about Japan these days, so maybe some activities together working with the Indians are something that might help us to get back on the bicycle again and start riding again. And these are not an exhaustive list, but I think we need to start thinking of things we can do together, as I say, to get back on that bicycle and ride. So thank you very much, Ralph.
Thank you very much.